I am Martha Williams. As I sat in my rocking chair by the window, I gazed at the marigolds blooming in the garden. These flowers were a favorite of my grandson Tommy, whom we lost 5 years ago. Each time the yellow petals sway in the wind, vivid memories of that day come flooding back. Grandma, look. This flower is like the sun. Tommy's voice seemed to echo in my ears. His innocent smile, those big round eyes, and the soft touch of his hair, everything feels as fresh as if it were yesterday. My son Michael, his wife Jennifer, and 5-year-old Tommy lived in Maplewood, the next town over. Every weekend, they would visit my house without fail, cherishing our family time together. Michael would man the barbecue grill in the backyard, Jennifer would prepare salads in the kitchen, and I would bake my special apple pie. Tommy always followed me around, his eyes full of curiosity. Grandma, teach me how to make it next time. Tommy would say, and I'd smile and nod. Of course, we'll make it together when you're a bit older. Those happy days changed completely after that day. On July 15, 2018, Michael and Tommy went on a father-son hiking trip to Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area in New Jersey, but they never returned. At first, we thought they had just gotten lost. Their car was found in the trailhead parking lot, and rangers and local police began searching. Jennifer and I visited the ranger station almost daily. They'll be fine, I kept telling Jennifer with a trembling voice. But deep down, anxiety was swirling. On the 4th day of the search, news came that the search had been temporarily suspended due to bad weather. That night, Jennifer and I prayed together at the local St. Joseph's Church. God, please keep them safe, our prayers echoed in the quiet church. However, as days passed, hope gradually faded. The search area expanded, even using helicopters and drones, but no trace of Michael and Tommy was found. 2 weeks after the search began, the rangers' report to us was the worst possible outcome. I'm sorry. We found Michael's wallet and part of Tommy's stuffed animal in a deep ravine. Given the weather conditions and terrain in this area, the rangers' words trailed off. I felt my world silently crumbling. Jennifer collapsed in my arms. The next few days felt like a nightmare. The police officially ended the search, declaring Michael and Tommy missing, presumed dead. Although no bodies were found, the circumstantial evidence led to the conclusion that survival was extremely unlikely. On the day of the memorial service, St. Joseph's Church was filled with people. On the altar were smiling photos of Michael and Tommy, along with the recovered belongings. I stood before the altar, dressed in black mourning clothes. Jennifer trembled beside me. Why did you leave us behind? Tears wouldn't stop. Jennifer clung to me, crying out loud. At that moment, we were strongly bonded together. As those left behind, we had no choice but to support each other. After the memorial service, Jennifer was about to return to her parents' home, but I stopped her. Stay here. You're my daughter now. She nodded tearfully. From then on, we began a new life, healing each other's wounds. In the days of grief, Jennifer's presence was my only solace. Sometimes, I would wake up in the middle of the night and sneak into Tommy's room. There, his mementos remained untouched. I would sit on the bed, holding his favorite Winnie the Pooh book. I could still feel the warmth of when I used to read it to Tommy. "Tommy, Grandma will never forget you," I whispered, quietly shedding tears. They say grief eases with time, but my feelings for the lost family only grew stronger day by day. 5 years have passed. Jennifer and I have lived supporting each other. Jennifer started working as a teacher at a local elementary school, and I continue volunteer work at the community center. On the surface, we might seem to be living a normal life. But deep down, there's always the thought of the family we lost that day. Every time the marigolds sway in the wind, I let out a small sigh. "Tommy, Michael, where are you?" I whispered, quietly closing my eyes. Somewhere in my heart, I felt that the journey to find my lost family wasn't over yet. In the kitchen bathed in morning light, I was brewing coffee as usual. Outside the window, maple leaves were beginning to change color, heralding the arrival of autumn. 5 years have passed, seasons have turned, and time continues to flow. "Good morning, Martha," Jennifer's voice made me turn around. She was already dressed for work, her hair neatly tied back, wearing a white blouse and navy skirt. It's her 3rd year teaching at the local elementary school. Her eyes were slowly regaining their former sparkle. "Good morning, Jenny." "Have a good day," I handed her a warm cup of coffee. Jennifer smiled gratefully, took a sip, and said, "Thanks. I'll be home late tonight. There's a PTA meeting." "I understand. I'll leave dinner in the fridge for you." After Jennifer left, I checked my schedule for the day. Tuesday is volunteer day at the local food bank. Distributing food to impoverished families and the elderly has given me a sense of purpose. At the food bank, I spent a busy day as usual. Sorting food, distributing it, and chatting with visitors. Especially when I see young mothers with children, I tend to engage in long conversations. I can't help but see Tommy's face in theirs. "Thank you for your help today, Mrs. Williams," Jeanette, the supervisor, called out to me. "No, thank you. I'll be back on Thursday." When I returned home, the sun was already setting. I took a shower and had a simple dinner. Then, as usual, I sat on the living room sofa and turned on the TV. As I was flipping through channels, a local news program caught my eye. "Today, we bring you coverage of the Autumn Charity Festival held at Maplewood Community Park," the announcer's voice flowed. The screen showed a bustling park scene. Stalls lined up, and children were running around. I found myself smiling unconsciously. If Tommy were here, he would surely have been happy to participate, I thought, feeling a tightness in my chest. Just then, the camera focused on one boy. The most popular attraction at this year's festival was this shooting game. A 10-year-old boy brilliantly won the grand prize. My heart started beating rapidly. The boy on the screen looked exactly like Tommy. The same shaped eyes, the same smile. And then, "It can't be. The moment the boy unconsciously touched his left ear, I gasped. It was Tommy's habit. Since he was little, he always touched his left ear when he was nervous or excited. Tommy. I had spoken out loud without realizing it. My head was spinning, and my heart was pounding. Was this just a coincidence, or? The TV sound faded into the background. My vision blurred slightly, and my breathing became shallow. I tried desperately to calm myself down. Stay calm, Martha. Stay calm. I took deep breaths repeatedly, gradually regaining my composure. However, deep inside, a violent wave was swirling. Hope and anxiety, joy and fear. Conflicting emotions were surging. I picked up my smartphone and, with trembling fingers, called Jennifer. Jenny, we need to talk when you get back. What's wrong? Martha, your voice is shaking. It's okay. Just, let's talk when you get home. After hanging up, I stared at the TV screen once more. The program had already moved on to another topic, but I couldn't get the image of that boy out of my head. If it really was Tommy. Just thinking about that possibility made my chest ache. But at the same time, a small flame of hope lit up in my heart. For 5 years, Jennifer and I had been seeking the truth. And now, that truth might have appeared before our eyes. The living room clock showed 9 o'clock. About an hour until Jennifer returns. During that time, I replayed the footage in my mind over and over, doubting my own eyes. And I repeatedly ran simulations in my head about what we should do next. Outside the window, stars were beginning to twinkle in the night sky. I prayed quietly. God, if it really is Tommy, please guide us. Jennifer returned home just after 10 p.m. As she entered the doorway, looking tired, I called out to her quietly. Jenny, sit down. We need to talk. Seeing my expression, Jennifer immediately tensed up. After she sat on the living room sofa, I explained in detail about the TV program I had seen last night. About the boy who looked just like Tommy, and his characteristic gesture of touching his ear. Martha. Jennifer's voice was shaking. Do you really think it's Tommy? I don't know. But I think it's worth exploring the possibility. That night, we talked until late. Amidst a mix of anger, sadness, and anticipation for a reunion, we discussed how to face this situation. We should think about Tommy, I said quietly. What's best for him? Jennifer nodded, wiping away tears. Yes, you're right. But I can't forgive Michael. I understand, I put my arm around her shoulders. But meeting Tommy is our first priority. The next morning, we began preparing for our trip to New Hampshire. As we packed clothes into our suitcases, various emotions washed over us. Filling in the 5-year gap won't be easy. But we have no choice but to move forward, step by step. Outside the window, the autumn sunlight was shining brightly. Like the beginning of a new season, our lives were about to enter a new chapter. Amidst a mix of anxiety and anticipation, we took a deep breath, preparing for the journey ahead. A cold autumn wind greeted us as we arrived in the small town in New Hampshire. Trees with changing leaves colored the streets, creating a peaceful atmosphere. However, my and Jennifer's hearts were filled with tension over what was about to unfold. Following Sarah Morrison's instructions, we decided to wait at a town cafe first. Sipping coffee while looking out onto the street through the window. And then, at the promised time, we saw them coming. Michael looked a bit older, but it was definitely him. The woman named Sarah walked beside him, and then, it was Tommy. At 10 years old, he looked different from the 5-year-old in my memory, but the shape of his eyes and the way he walked were undoubtedly his. I heard Jennifer gasp. "Tommy." As they entered the cafe, I felt as if the air had frozen. Michael stopped in his tracks when he saw us, his face changing color. "Mom." "Jenny." His voice was trembling. Tommy looked confused, standing as if hiding behind Michael. I stood up and slowly approached them. "Michael, you owe us an explanation." As tension mounted, we sat down at the table. Sarah Morrison was also present, watching over the situation. Michael took a deep sigh and began to speak. "I'm sorry. I'll explain everything." He talked about his debts and gambling addiction, his affair with Sarah, and his decision to start a new life. But I couldn't leave Tommy behind. Jennifer was shaking with anger. "You ruined our lives. We cried every day for 5 years." Tommy looked confused, alternately looking at the faces of his parents. Michael bowed his head. "I know I can't make up for it. But..." I interrupted him. "Tommy, do you remember me? I'm your grandma." Tommy tilted his head. "I'm not sure, but it feels familiar somehow." At those words, tears welled up in my eyes. Jennifer was the same. "Tommy, I'm your real mother," Jennifer spoke gently. Confusion and curiosity flickered in Tommy's eyes. Sarah quietly spoke up. "Tommy, for the past 5 years, we've been lying to you. But that was wrong. You have the right to know the truth." Over the next few hours, we talked, shedding tears and anger, and gradually seeking a path to reconciliation. Tommy seemed to be slowly regaining memories of his real family. "I remember Grandma's apple pie." Tommy suddenly said. My heart leaped. Michael and Sarah acknowledged the gravity of their actions and showed their readiness to take legal responsibility. "We'll turn ourselves into the police. And we'll do whatever we can to make amends." Jennifer's expression was complex, but I could feel her anger gradually subsiding. "Tommy, what do you want to do?" I asked gently. Tommy thought for a moment before answering. "I want to be with everyone." "But, that's difficult, isn't it?" At those words, the adults looked at each other. Indeed, this is not a problem that can be easily solved. However, for Tommy's sake, we must move forward in some way. "Let's take it one step at a time," I suggested. "First, let's create time for Tommy to spend with his real family. And Michael and Sarah need to face their legal responsibilities." Everyone agreed. This is not an end, but a new beginning. A year has passed since then. In the softly lit hallway of the courthouse on an autumn day, we were waiting for the verdict. Michael and Sarah had been charged with child abduction and faking a disappearance. The sentence was 3 years of actual imprisonment for Michael and 2 years for Sarah. They accepted the verdict calmly. Tommy, in tears, hugged Michael. "Dad, do your best." Jennifer watched this scene with a complex expression. I could sense anger and sympathy conflicting within her. After the sentencing, we began a new life as a family. Jennifer was granted custody of Tommy, and I moved in to live with them. Once a week, Tommy visits Michael and Sarah in prison. At first, it was awkward, but gradually it became part of our routine. Tommy slowly began to regain memories of his real family. One day, he suddenly said to me, "Grandma, I remember. We used to make cookies together." At those words, I couldn't help but shed tears. Jennifer was attending counseling, facing her emotions. She gradually regained her smile and built a new relationship with Tommy. Our family started gathering for dinner every Sunday. Sometimes, letters from Michael or Sarah would be placed on the dining table. They were spending days of reflection in prison, contemplating their lives after release. Society showed great interest in our case, and the media often came for interviews. However, we chose to avoid the gaze of reporters and live quietly. Over this past year, we've learned many things. That even if the shape of a family changes, love doesn't change. That even if you make mistakes, there's a path to atonement and reconciliation. And above all, how important the truth is. Tommy now enjoys school with his friends and has joined a baseball team. Every time I see his smile, I feel that overcoming this ordeal was worth it. Family bonds can sometimes seem on the verge of breaking, but they can be repaired and made even stronger. Our story has only just begun. We intend to continue walking forward with love and understanding.